This is the Picard podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 8, Surrender.
It's been a long time since we all sat around a table like this.
Too long, really. By far.
I am so grateful to be here. Hardship may have brought me here, but I want you all to know that there wasn't a day all those years that I didn't miss all of you.
And we missed you too. I even found myself talking to you on my darkest days. Well, on my happiest ones too. It turns out you give really good advice even when you're not there, so you were always in my heart when it mattered.
Thank you.
I have slaughtered countless enemies over the years and considered sending their heads to all of you. But I was advised that that was passive-aggressive.
All that matters is that we are together once more. Because I need you. All of you.
Welcome back, fellow Trekkies, Trekkers, and everything in between. This is TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 8, Surrender. I am one of your hosts, Chris.
I am one of your other hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. I am your third and final host, John.
So does the fact that Chris is here this week confirm that we're all now shapeshifters, or confirm that we got Chris back and we're all not shapeshifters?
Don't know. I've not been able to question him thoroughly enough.
What did I eat for that wood weekend I came over? God, even I couldn't remember that.
No.
That's it. No.
That's a long time ago.
Just assume everyone is
changeling.
either a scroll. I was going to say scroll, but no,
changeling. Yes.
I actually remember.
Oh, really? What was it?
It was quesadillas.
It was
Super Bowl
quesadillas.
night.
Oh, wow.
Super Bowl night. But I also had a lot of nachos too. So both answers are correct.
But that's a snack. Not something lovingly cooked for you like I did.
Yes, but
You lovingly cooked the nachos. You put them in. You added the
true.
cheese. Yeah, we added the refried
I
beans.
dunked them
to
out of the
corner.
package. And
Yeah, exactly.
hang on, I think I
Yes.
did that.
No.
Okay.
You did it the first time. I did it the second time.
I got you. Good stuff. Well, the fact that he knows all that extra detail proves that he's not a changeling, basically. So, welcome back, Chris. Nice to have you back.
Thank you. Looking forward to chatting all about this episode. But before we do, don't forget, for any of our listeners, if you haven't yet, head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com and you can subscribe on any Federation or Changeling supporting podcast player. Yes, and if you want to send us your feedback to this show, this episode, or anything in between, you can send us your emails to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or you can head on over to facebook.com/group/tvpodcastindustries, where we have each and every episode. We have some feedback posts and you can put it in there and we'll read it out on the airways. But as a reminder, the 8th question for our Picard final 10 forward pub quiz will be available later this episode. Make sure you gather all 10 answers to the pub quiz questions at the end of the season. Email them to us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com and you can be in a chance of getting your hands on some good Star Trek Picard goodies. Yes, you can. If you want to know all the questions, you can head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com. Up in the corner, under pub quiz, we list them out. And that is all done by our illustrious co-host and editor supreme and developer supreme, Derek.
Well, thanks, Chris. It is all done by me, yes, but thank you for giving me all of the credits for it. John at least comes up with most of the questions, so that's helpful.
Yes, but you type them out.
No, I do.
But
That's my one role.
That's
my one
John
role.
Types them all out.
That's my one role.
Yes, you type.
Ding,
You
ding, ding, ding,
you
ding,
type
ding,
out
ding,
the
ding,
thing
ding.
very slowly. But we're not here to talk about your lack of typing skills. We're here to talk about episode 8, Surrender. So let's dive straight into it. Derek, do you want to give us the episode details of who gave us what, where, and how?
Of course, yes. The series is created by Akiva Goldsman, Michael Chabon, Krista Bayer, and Alex Kurtzman. The story for this episode was written by Matt Okamura. He is a story editor on season 2 and season 3 of the show. Also wrote season 2, episode 9, Hide and Seek, which is a pretty good episode of season 2.
It was, actually, yeah. I remember that one.
Yeah, and done another good job here.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, this is definitely a good one.
And this episode was directed once again by Deborah Kampmeyer, who directed episode 7 as well. So we talked all about her last week.
Yes, and you can see her hand all over it. Very similar style, very similar to episode 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, almost a very similar ending as well.
Yes, we shall talk about that. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 8?
Sure. With Vadik in control of the USS Titan and its systems, she begins to hunt the remaining Starfleet crew and collect her prize, Jack Crusher. Elsewhere on the Titan, Jean-Luc Picard and Beverly Crusher, joined by Jack and Sidney LaForge, are shut out of the Titan by law. They are powerless to wrestle back control of the Titan, and then Vadik forces Picard to make an impossible choice, to deliver his son into her custody or watch the crew held on the bridge get executed one by one every 10 minutes. Meanwhile, on board the Shrike, Will Riker and Deanna Troi are held captive. Recovering from their interrogation, both begin to confront the distance that had developed between them following the death of their son. They also are very confident that Picard will be able to counter Vadik's use of the compromise codes given by Will to stop the torture of Deanna. As a guard comes to collect Deanna for further interrogation, he is killed by Worf, who rescues them from their cell. Along with Raffi, they escape the Shrike to the Titan on board a cloaked shuttle with intel on the changeling's autopsy of Picard's biological body. Things on the Titan begin to get far worse as Vadik executes her first hostage, Lieutenant Tavine, on the bridge. To combat Vadik, Jack tries to use his ability to connect with Lieutenant Mura on the bridge to use Picard's override command codes, but his attempt fails. Increasingly desperate, Picard, Beverly, Jack, and Sidney locate Geordi LaForge. They devise a plan to breach the firewall between Data and Lore in the hope that Data will prevail and be able to hack the command controls on board the Titan, while Jack heads to the bridge to give himself over to Vadik. On the bridge, Jack threatens Vadik to get the crew to safety by holding what appears to be an explosive grenade. At the same time, Data manages to trick Lore to assume control of the Golem. As Data regains control of the Titan's systems, Jack tricks Vadik, activating a force field around him as Data opens the bridge's emergency evacuation system, sending Vadik shooting out into space, where she freezes and shatters to death. Back on the Titan, Captain Shaw gives Commander 7 of 9 the pleasure of firing on and destroying the Shrike. Together again, Picard, Beverly, Geordi, Will, Worf, Deanna, and Data agree that whatever the changelings have planned is directly linked to Jack's abilities and must be stopped. As they continue to examine the information obtained from the Shrike, Deanna sits down with Jack to connect to him, understand the darkness that surrounds him, and to help him find out what's behind the red door.
I sense a darkness around you.
I do. I think behind the red door is probably Sandy Toksvig from number 73.
Interesting. It would be nice if there was number 9 in the front of it, and then we could have an episode of Inside Number 9 on the Titan.
Yeah, it would.
Lots of good British shows there for our wonderful British listeners.
Yes, very much. Certainly number 73 is going back to the childhood days. But I suspect something a lot darker than a Saturday primetime children's TV show.
Right.
Yes.
So definitely something more akin to Inside Number 9.
Yes.
Okay.
And I do have some theories about the darkness and what that darkness is and who this darkness is.
Well, exactly. I'm seeing lots of theories out there which I'm trying not to see. I can't unsee some of them. So,
do you want me to just tell you my one? Or shall I hold off my theory? Because that's kind of what we do here.
Yes, well, we can get to that, because you do have that as one of your points, I believe.
I do.
Around the red door. So all will be revealed.
Yes, I do want to do a 7, but that's all the way in the future.
Okay.
Until that point, let's get into our discussion points for this episode.
Make it so, number one.
Let's kick off with our small moment for this episode. John, do you want to take us away?
Yes, I'll kick off. Whatever about Jack's darkness, I think the episode opens really quite dark, and I've gone with methodical Vadik. I just love the line as she says, "First, let's take their eyes." As the image switches to all the lights going off on the Titan, to then and next their ears as their communications go down, and finally their way forward as she closes off escape routes that the Starfleet crew aboard the Titan are, as they're trying to escape from her soldiers that are hunting them down. And I just loved how that played, that methodical sort of patter of Vadik here, just even the way she's got that tune in her head as she uses her fingers to kind of tap it out. This methodic, rhythmic sort of hunting and dissection of the remaining crew outside of the bridge, being hunted, by her soldiers. And I just thought it was really, really well done. I just loved how it was delivered by Amanda Plummer as well.
So good.
Yeah, that was actually one of the points I wanted to bring, is just Amanda Plummer. We haven't talked much about her. We talked about her, each of the deliveries, but actually, when you look back on it now, she's been a top class, A tier kind of villain.
Absolutely.
For Star Trek now across. She would be up there with me. Khan! And your
definitely.
other kind of, the OG Borg Queen, and some of those ones who, ooze delivery of their lines. I was going to say chew the scenery, but more, not in a bad way, but really take on, you're forced to listen to them when they deliver these monologues and soliloquies, kind of very much, you're drawn and to listen to that narrative.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
She really imposes herself on the scenes, but in really sort of good, meaningful way, because that's what that character demands. She is, maybe technically second in command of this. She formed this breakaway sect from her time and horrific experiences on Daystrom Station. So, this is a person who also should be immensely charismatic because of the sect that she leads. She's persuasive, and I think, you really get that through in this episode. Not so much with these lines. This is just sort of methodical threat, and it being enacted, to show there's no messing around. And she does that through this episode, but is also, hugely persuasive, sort of with Jack later on, in terms of, or at least she thinks she is. So I really just enjoyed, this little sequence. I also just thought, again, I just thought Amanda Plummer was superb. I mean, even just that opening where it's looking out to space and then you see the reflection of her and then the lighter, sort of firing up as she, lights her cigarette, as she sat in the captain's chair on the Titan. I thought it was just really, really good.
Is the Titan the most captained ship in all of Starfleet by now? We're only 8 episodes into the show and it's had Shaw, Riker, and Vadik now as proclaimed captains of the ship, right? At some point.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm sure. I think Picard actually didn't proclaim himself captain. It was only Riker, right? He was kicked off the bridge by Riker. So, so no, he hasn't been captain. So at least we've had 3 in 8 episodes. It was quite a lot.
Yeah, and you could do Picard and 7 if you really want to get pedantic in terms of charge, control.
Yes, 7 has also taken the captain's chair, and a couple of points as well. So yeah.
Hey, Even Jack did. Jack sat in it for a bit.
Yeah,
That is true.
he was kicked out of that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Good stuff, but great point. And I love her additional threats as well when she's effectively, obviously, in control of the system. When she's saying to them, I could turn the heat up and boil you alive. I could turn the heat down and freeze you to death. She's totally in control of this ship, and the threats that exude from her as the episode goes on are great. But those specifically where she's calling it out like a nursery rhyme, take away their eyes, their ears, and their way forward, is fantastic opening.
But that's it. And even then with, the bridge crew that are there with her as she kind of goes to Picard, the thing that will intrigue me is which of the officers here with me you'll miss most, really, really good.
Yeah. Chris, how about yourself? What's your number one moment, your small moment from the episode?
I'm just going to take a bit of humor where we see Geordi go, Data, you used a contraction.
Mm-hmm.
And it appears, I can use contraction now. And humor.
Yes.
Like, response from Data. And it's just a fun nod back to, like, all those conversations between Geordi and Data where it would be a joke and Data couldn't understand a joke or tell a joke and didn't get it and then couldn't use contractions. So just fun nod, but, like, even those who probably don't get it probably still find some humor in it, but really for those who have watched most of The Next Generation, this is a very nice, just a callback nostalgia piece, but now also showing how Data has evolved.
Absolutely.
So just a very small bit, but love it.
Yeah, and as far as I remember, it used to be a thing amongst fans trying to point out that Data has used contractions before, and it was usually a bit of a flub, because he's not supposed to. So they always tried really hard for him not to say contractions. So it is fun here that they're kind of nodding back to that they don't have to worry about that anymore. He's evolved. We're grand now. We can shorten our words down. It's okay. But I'm sure I remember, forums at the time, when Next Generation was on, talking about a moment when Data may have, mistakenly said a contraction, when he's not supposed to. Because he is just a human actor played by Brent Spiner, and they are human writers writing the dialogue. So occasionally they may have fluffed it once or twice when people wouldn't have expected to notice in a 25 episode season that someone said it once.
And in case you are young, a forum was basically where we used to go and talk about these shows and things like that back in the wee days before social media.
It was like a written podcast.
Yeah, it was. Exactly.
It was, think Reddit, but one per topic usually, and or like before MySpace, before Bebo. Like, these were the OG social media nerd spots.
There you go.
And before that, it would have been CB Radio.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and then
did you not just shout out to the stars, I like Star Trek?
No. They had a string with two cans. Did you enjoy this show? I did.
It would have been CB Radio. And occasionally you would get sort of a dodgy trucker coming on going, "Oh, it's Sally."
All right, breaker. We're going to move on to Derek's point here because we need to move forward in this conversation.
There you go.
Derek.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us your point for this episode?
That's a good plan. So we've moved from darkness to humor. I'm going to go for reconciliation as my first point. We have the meeting of Riker and Troi properly in this episode. I like that we have a moment between the two of them. I love that it starts off with a bit of humor in it when Riker calls her Imzadi, a word that he's used to describe her since right back at the beginning of their relationship. And Troy's response to it was, "Wow, I wish I'd told you one other Betazoid word, taught you one other word to use," then gives him the word, which is Yantaru. And eventually explains that what that means is baby of immense size, which is absolutely useless. He never will be able to replace Imzadi, his word of love for Troi, with baby of immense size. I don't think. But there is some other lovely pieces about this. Again, we've mentioned multiple times about how great Jonathan Frakes has been in this season. But I think all the actors, when they're given these moments to actually have something to do with their character and talk between each other, it's something that you kind of miss when you just have them as cameos coming on board. We only got one line from Deanna when she appeared last time with her "oh will" moment, but here this moment between the two of them where she's explaining when the changelings arrived as as Riker. To their home. She jokes that she couldn't tell them apart. They did a great job, but they're good in bed and bad at cooking, just like him. So, then she jokes saying, I knew instantly it wasn't you. Didn't have the same aura around them and I can't read changelings. But then it turns into that conversation about their loss as a couple. We now know why Riker disappeared away. He ran from Troi because she was pushing his emotions down for the loss of their son Thad. She had never allowed him to properly experience the grief of losing his son. It's interesting, isn't it, that that's an ability of Troi's. As a counselor, she would normally counsel people, but she can also suppress the feelings, and felt that would be the better thing to do for him. But I like that having the conversation between the two of them, she admits that she did something wrong. She admits that she overstepped the mark. She should have known from her training that that's not what you do when you're counselling someone. Well,
that's it, yeah. Like, actually, I love that line that she used, where she says, as a counsellor, I should have realised you can't skip to the end of healing. Mm-hmm. You have to go through the nuts and bolts of it. So, I love that. And I mean, I've always loved Deanna Troi because there's always been this inherent, I think it's twofold, because of the serious moments, that empathetic level, because of her species. Yeah. But she's always had that glint of cheekiness as well in her eyes. And you see that through this episode at different points, like when Worf arrives. And I just love the character and Marina Sirtis for just this portrayal of this character as well. I really, really enjoy her when I see her. Even back in season 1, even though it was just a small amount of time, I just loved that. I mean, again, I love where they kind of reconnect over the fact that they don't really like the house that they're living in, on the planet that they're on, because they were really there for their son, not for them. And she just goes, the foyer is very judgy. I was trying to think back to season 1 with the house, and I was like, I don't remember how judgy the foyer was, but
I probably wouldn't have described it like that. Like, I remember being as like a wood cabin on a planet that was absolutely empty, and had a nice fire pit to cook pizzas, a nice pizza oven probably.
And she wants city life again.
Yes, she wants to be around people again. Yeah, not cutting themselves off. But I do think it's a really important moment to have these characters, and they've done this really well this season, is really respecting the characters, giving them all moments together. And this is my small moment from the episode. There's a couple of other great big moments for these characters in this episode that I really enjoyed. It's much better to do that. If you're going to do fan service and bring characters back as cameos, that's great. But if you're going to do real fan service, bringing them back as the characters we knew them as in the past, and having resolutions and having time between these people to discuss their motivations, to discuss what's going on between them, that's way, way better for me. So, if this is going to be the last run for TNG, I'm glad they have all got moments together.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. And before we move on to our medium points, I'll ask you guys one question. What's worse than a woodpecker?
A woodpecker with two heads. I love it. That's a great joke. I like that.
It was good. Now, let's move on to our Omega Directive, our medium points.
Implement the Omega Directive immediately.
John, do you want to give us your medium moment, your Omega Directive?
Mine is my medium moment for this episode is we do get the reveal of Worf and Raffi's secret mission. In a sense, we know they've kind of gone off Titan, as in USS Titan, rather than the planet or the moon. Yes. But they have, gone off Titan on a secret mission. Weren't entirely sure what that was, but I'm guessing it was somehow trying to shadow the Shrike, at least locate it, to find out where the body of Picard has gone after being taken from Daystrom station. And it just so happens it is on the Shrike. So, as luck would have it, Worf and Raffi are in the vicinity when dare I say it, the show is going down on the Titan. And indeed, this means the secret mission does come with a bonus for them, in that, luckily for Riker and Troi, they do have Worf's battle prowess to get them out of their their cell effectively aboard the Shrike. So I like the fact that it's a second time this season where it's just he's just runs his Klingon weapon through the back of the enemy.
Yes.
So he is certainly nimble and fleet-footed, and is able to sort of sneak up. So
he's a great warrior.
He is a great warrior.
But I was going to call it a Bat'leth, and I know that's not the Bat'leth. It's a brand new weapon that was created for this season, and I just saw it on Twitter earlier on. I forgot to take down a note of it about what the name of it is. But it's a cool weapon. It's a one-handed sword, effectively.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
So I really this is the secret mission where they've tracked his body, or Picard's biological body, to the Shrike, and so are able to take information from the data banks of the Shrike. So interestingly, we hear that they seem to have extracted parts of the frontal lobe where the Irumadic syndrome would form,
or the misdiagnosed Irumadic
in the brain,
syndrome.
or the misdiagnosed, exactly, as we heard from last week. So they do find Picard's body. I don't think they brought it back onto the Titan.
I don't think so.
But they did have their cloaked shuttle to escape from the Shrike after the remaining soldiers aboard had realized that Will and Deanna had escaped their cell. So managed to get back in time to help out with and join up with Geordi and Picard and Beverly. I really enjoyed just Deanna seeing Worf as well. That was just a really nice moment. Again, like you say, just having those little moments between the different characters is really, really good.
Absolutely.
And I think this was, also sort of really good where Worf is explaining how he's taken the teachings of Deanna to really help him become much more sort of centered and balanced. So, you just see the face on Deanna kind of like, is this really happening? Like she wasn't expecting it to ever happen. So,
well, it's great. It's the little love triangle, really, with Worf,
Yes.
Riker and Deanna. And I love, Riker's brilliant line, there where he says, "Oh God, is the torture over, or is this another part of the torture?" As Worf is kind of redeclaring his love for Deanna in front of Riker, which is just really fun. I really like that. Yeah.
So it was good to kind of just get some partial reveal of this secret mission that Worf and Raffi are now back aboard the Titan. Maybe it's a little convenient where it is, but
makes sense then.
I think it does. It makes more sense now that knowing that that Vadic is effectively the leader of this sect. And so she would be involved in stealing that. She had the other piece of technology, the other weapon as well.
Exactly.
So, it makes sense that the body is still aboard, on the Shrike.
Yeah. It's weird that they didn't reveal whether Picard's body was still in the Shrike when it went at the end of the episode, or whether they took it off and put it on the ship. I know he has no need for the body. It's his former body, right? So he doesn't necessarily need it or anything like that, but it's odd that they didn't kind of...
Well, essentially it's been, blown up.
Yeah, we think, we presume so.
I assume.
There's no need.
I assume so.
There's no need for it.
Again, it's like, it's already causing trouble. So it's like, just leave it there. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Make it a bit crispy. Burn
have,
it to shreds. It'll be fine.
We have the information that we need from the databanks on what they were doing with it. So so the theory that they had last week, that they were going to use the body for something. They were using it for research to find out about this misdiagnosed Irumadic syndrome, but they didn't actually need the corpse effectively to use that, which is good.
And of course, it all means that, the focus really does become about Jack, at the start. And in fact, even having the curveball that, they took Picard's body, The initial part of this season were with the focus, with the different species, which were ultimately changelings, going after, Jack.
Mm-hmm.
All of this, it is consistent with that. And in fact, I guess the body of Picard, a little bit of a curveball in a sense. If, there was, any theories, I think probably like mine, that it would be reanimated in some way, or just the pure sort of genetic sequence of him be used to replicate him in some way. But actually, it is about this misdiagnosed Irumadic syndrome. Interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's my medium moment. Chris, what is yours?
I'll go for, it's a quick medium, but it's definitely one that we weren't expecting, which is Vadic kind of killing the bridge officers. You don't usually get this in a Star Trek show, which is execution. And especially execution of a character who we've seen since the Titan has been kind of shown on screen. So again, not a character who essentially could go forward to, if they survived, go on and be something. Well, it's just Tavine. Tavine is dead. Or Officer Tavine. Lieutenant Tavine?
Lieutenant Tavine.
Lieutenant Tavine is no more. And again, Vadic being Vadic, pointing at one person, then last minute spinning on a dime and essentially shooting the other person. Not expecting it. Expecting a warning shot, expecting kind of, you're forcing my hand. But again, because it's Star Trek, not getting that level of brutality, if we want to call it that. More sadism almost. But seeing that on screen, again, it's good shock for the soul.
Absolutely.
In terms of the narrative. They went with it. Cool. Okay, what's next?
It was really tense as well. I mean, super tense because, Lieutenant Mura was in the picture. Ensign Esmar as well was the other member of the crew who was in the picture. And as you say, just that spin round. And I mean, for me, I wasn't even thinking about Tavine. I actually thought, because there was a bit of camera focus happening on 7 of 9 and Captain Shaw, and because of the state of Captain Shaw after sort of being beaten up by Vadic and a sort of right-hand man, I actually there was a moment where I thought, how you see Vadic kill the Daystrom scientist by using like a pointy bit of her liquid form, her goo form, it goes through her shoulder, from the last episode. I thought all of a sudden something was going to come shooting out of Vadic.
Right.
I think it was going to be more intimate, I suppose, if you will, or, that she would use her form, her ability as a changeling to kill, Captain Shaw.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was a moment there where I thought, uh-oh.
Yeah. And when you kind of list out the people that she could have killed in that moment, everybody has a reason except for Tavine, which I like. Mura was the one that put in the code, that almost gave the ship back. You have Ensign Esmar, who's crying in the corner about kind of a please don't kill me. She's terrified in that moment, which means that she would be attracting the attention of Vadic. Obviously Shaw and 7 very likely targets for her because they're going to cause the most, killing the captain of the ship or one of the members of the most connected members of the crew that we have here to Picard. All of those people have reasons, but the fact that she kills Tavine, who makes no noise, Vulcan science officer, able to keep track of her emotion, and is just killed out of hand, that almost is a statement in itself from Vadic. I don't care which one of you kill, and any of you are on the chopping block. So it really adds to that tension, I think, because she kills Tavine there.
Agreed.
But it is also really interesting as well, if you think back all the way to Star Trek, the original series, the Vulcan science officer on the original Enterprise was Spock. This is the Vulcan science officer aboard the Titan, and they're killing her right here.
Yeah.
I know lots of fans have been calling for the Star Trek Legacy show, which will go on after this show, where we have the crew of the Titan here who've all been introduced, all had their announcements as casting over the couple of weeks coming into this series. So lots of people thinking these people are going to go on to create a new Star Trek series in the future, and here we have one of them taken out.
Well, absolutely.
That, like, again, this is, yeah, sure, you'll get your Star Trek Legacy series if enough of them are left. And we get to the last episode and like there's one, and it's not even going to be, it's going to be Shaw. It's just going to be Shaw by himself, like sitting on the deck of the bridge of the Titan after it's been ejected and pushed down onto a planet like every other kind of starship.
It's Shaw and Ensign the Forge.
Yes, exactly. So that was my medium moment. Derek, what about yourself?
Well, I said I was going to talk about character moments in this episode. None better for me in this episode for my medium moment than the cast of Star Trek The Next Generation reunited. We have an actual moment where we get the whole lot of them together.
Amazing.
And they take time so everybody can have their discussion with each other. Everybody can say hello for the first time if they haven't seen each other before. We have obviously Beverly and Deanna connecting with each other. Love Deanna's call out to Beverly that she's always been in her mind over the course of the 20 years. She's always thought about her. She's talked to her day on day, asking what she would say, showing the closeness of the two of them as friends aboard the Enterprise many years ago. We obviously have the reuniting of Data and LaForge, which you talked about earlier on, Chris. You know, that is the opening moment for this reunion of everybody, is the two of them walking to the room together, which is something you would see at the opening of almost every episode of Star Trek Next Generation, would be the two of them having a conversation, walking to the room with the rest of the senior officers. So I thought that was a nice callback in itself. But yeah, it was great just to have everybody all around the big table, all getting on the same side. Catching up with each other, making sure they talked about the time that they were apart and how much they all missed each other. Just thought that was great. And then it all ending with Picard going, "Now, my friends, I'm glad I have you all here. We now need to all work together to fix this problem, to solve this one last time."
Well, that's it. It's like, I literally just wrote in my notes, the team are back together again. Amazing. And then didn't take any more notes on it because it was just like, I was just kind of like going, this is
so good.
Just great. And it, because of all the little interactions before, just having them all around the table, it is, you know, the team is back together again and they're going to kick ass.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, you get it from Data where he's saying to Geordi, you know, the one constant I've always had is the love of our friendship. That's the one thing that stays the same about me. You have Worf with his excellent line of, "I've slaughtered countless enemies over the years and wanted to send you their heads, but was told that was passive aggressive." Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely great. Really, really enjoyed it. But when you look around as well, you know, there would have been a possibility that they would have stuck in someone like Captain Shaw in there, or even Seven. You know, Seven's a great character, of course, but Seven's not around that table. Even Jack's not there, and Jack's now a major character in this series, being the son of Beverly and Picard. But they make sure this is just the senior bridge crew of the Enterprise sitting around having a moment together. So well done, series. Yeah, you have to do that. So well done to them.
Definitely.
No, and it served a purpose.
Exactly.
Because it also moves the story into, like, what's next.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel if they had done that without the actual moving forward to discuss the elephant in the room, i.e. Jack, then I would have gone, oh, no, that was just, yeah, fine, whatever, didn't need it.
Exactly.
Because they actually went, no, okay, this is all great. Can we actually kind of figure out what's happening, because we've only got like Frontier Day in a couple of hours.
Yeah, we can't have a round of traditional poker like we used to have on the Enterprise to have our reunion, which is honestly, that is where they would have leaned into in the past. They would have had them reunite over a game of cards for a couple of minute scenes so they can all say hello to each other. But
they can still lean into that.
They will
at the end when they are triumphant with a bit of Will's jazz going on in the background and the whiskey on the table.
We did see the poker cards already in this episode.
Yeah,
when they help Riker and Troi move out of their house, they can have a game of cards. That's the final moment.
Exactly what's going to happen.
It was so good. I mean, I'm guessing because of what Deanna says to Beverly, the theory that we had the last week that Beverly could be a changeling is probably not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, you know, that...
I think it's still a possibility that a member of that table could be a changeling.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Although, you're right, Deanna says that she can't read changelings, of course. So
So if Beverly was just a blank void, you know?
That's right. Deanna would actually say that, but maybe she'd been overwhelmed by the darkness that she's feeling aboard the ship.
It could be that, yes, exactly, that she can't see.
Yeah, and the wave of nostalgia that we're all feeling too.
Yeah.
Maybe. All right, but that theory might be off the table, but I don't want to be blindsided if that theory happens to be true and Beverly is a changeling.
They're all changelings.
Everybody there is a changeling.
Everyone's a changeling.
Good stuff. That was my medium moment for the episode.
Excellent. Let's move on to our big moment, the Prime Directive.
We must face the ramifications of the Prime Directive.
Let's discuss those ramifications.
Mm-hmm. John,
do you want to take us away with your big moment?
I will. My big moment for the episode, I guess, for Star Trek is solids. I don't know whether I can say that.
Oh, you've been bleeped, don't worry.
Okay, grand. Excellent. But I just absolutely loved the resignation of Vadic saying that as she realizes that she's been duped, and as she gets sucked out into outer space by Data effectively taking back control of the ship systems.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like, I have to say, not only did she presumably freeze to death, she then shattered into 1,000 pieces or more. I'm wondering if when some of them fall to a nearby planet, whether they will merge up like the T-1000, I kept thinking, is she truly dead?
Yeah.
Certainly when she froze, and then I was like, oh no, she's shattered now. And quite frankly, not only shattered, but with the other side of this equation is that her ship, the Shrike, is also pretty shattered as well from all the firepower of the Titan being aimed and fired at it. So I guess she gets caught up in the explosion of their warp coil as well. So she also gets absolutely fried as well. So
that could have melted the frozen pieces back together in space. Sorry.
Yeah, but then she would refreeze again.
It's just an ongoing.
It'd just be a never-ending loop of it'd be like sort of the dinner that's constantly rewarmed up. So yeah, I guess.
Okay, we've been watching Yellow Jackets for the last couple of weeks, John. That's obviously why that's in your head.
Maybe. So yeah, I just, to be honest, I was not expecting that Vadic would be sort of dispatched in this episode. I like the way that she was dispatched. I thought it was fitting. She was hugely uncompromising, absolutely singularly focused on the destruction of the human race. Not the human race. On the destruction of Starfleet and the Federation. So all the species that make up the Federation. And so, at the end of the day, I think it was, I guess, the sleight of hand in which it was done, because I was absolutely convinced that what Jack had there was some kind of detonator.
Is it because we've seen that in Star Wars very often, the thermal detonator, that it looks really like a thermal detonator?
And he has it armed, and but he's holding it out in a way that doesn't suggest actually it's a pop-up force field. It's if you try and force anything, you won't have me because I'll kill myself. I mean, that's effectively the play he's making here, so that he can at least sort of extract the remaining members of the bridge crew sort of off the bridge so that they're kind of relatively safe.
And really what he's saying to Vadic is, you've seen Star Wars Return of the Jedi. You know that moment where Princess Leia uses the thermal detonator to threaten Jabba the Hutt.
Well, exactly. But so, it was, I kind of liked the way it was done, because,
love the force field too.
Initially you were just thinking, and because I like the fact that it was slightly untold, that we're going to do a plan here. And initially it's just about, breaking that firewall, between Data and Lore in the Golem body. But that actually, it's bigger than that. It's just, it was not revealed to us as the audience until it takes place. So, it's a nice surprise that happens, because, like I was saying at the start, you really get that persuasiveness that comes from Vadic here, saying, she wants his gifts, but, as soon as she's making that connection by saying, you've heard the voices. Are you not curious to see what's behind that red door? Mm-hmm. She knows intimately about what he is sort of feeling, what he's seeing in these memories, these visions. But it feels like it's coming from her own personal experience. Mm-hmm. And so that immediately makes this connection. It's taken him however long to really open up about this to Beverly. Mm-hmm. So, that way of persuasion and connection to draw him in. It's a similar thing to the trick that's happening in the Golem between Data and Law, but also with, this trick being played on Vadic here. Mm-hmm. That ultimately is her undoing. But yeah, I thought this was massive because I really enjoyed Vadic. I thought, at least give her those multiple deaths of freezing, and then shattering, and then being consumed by a warp coil explosion, and of course the Shrike going. I'm guessing either they had their shields down because they knew they had the upper hand, or whether Worf and Raffi did some jiggery pokery before they left in order to keep the shields down. But I'm kind of I think they thought victory was theirs, and so
Captain Vadic of the USS Titan.
Exactly.
Yeah, why would they put the shields up to her?
But I really enjoyed Shaw giving the honor, the pleasure to 7 of 9, and giving her full title of Commander 7 of 9, and using 7 of 9 as well after their whispers whilst being held hostage on the bridge.
Yeah. Just speaking of those whispers, just because we haven't talked about it, Shaw actually tells her she should have dropped the turbo lift, killing him inside.
Yes.
And 7 had effectively said I couldn't do that. So she's saying that she chose his life over killing Vadic at that time. So I thought that was an interesting discussion among the whispers there between the two of them. It's good.
Well, they're almost having a full-blown argument, whispering argument there, because he's like, you're a Starfleet officer. Yeah. You should have, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Exactly.
You should have dropped the turbo lift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah. Good stuff. Good point, John.
Why, thank you. Chris, what is your big memento for this episode?
I'm gonna go all 7. What's in the door? What's in the door? Oh, they're stringing us along here.
It's a microwave oven.
It's ding. Your dinner's ready. Essentially, for me, I really, really, really just want to know now. Like, they're building this up, and exactly, it's what they wanted to do. They're showing us the techniques Jack has. Everyone else seems to know, i.e. all the changeling know. The enemy knows what Jack is, who Jack is. Mm-hmm. And they haven't, in my head, dropped enough hints or clues.
No.
At all.
No, they haven't.
At all. Like, again, like everyone, I've seen hundreds of different, like, oh, well, they think it might be this, and this is another. Here's the I'm like, okay. So I'm going to throw out my idea.
Okay.
Because I just want to add it to the pile. Because Deanna used a very specific term here. Mm-hmm. There's an evil. There's a darkness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, we know one fluid, tar-like, oozy substance from the Next Generation that was evil personified.
Okay.
That was literally the evil of a group of people stripped from them, turned into a oil tar-like substance.
Okay.
Gooey substance. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
No.
I have forgotten that.
I do remember a black, gooey, tar-like substance, but I don't remember the name of...
Yes, Armus.
Okay.
Armus from the episode where it's essentially Lieutenant Yar gets kind of covered in it.
Yes.
To a point as well. This is like, just checking, episode 23 of the first season of Star Trek.
That's where Lieutenant Yar died.
Correct.
I believe, yes.
And we do see Lieutenant Yar in this
episode.
We do, of course. Yep.
This is a nice callback to that character, to a thing that kind of connects a lot of the team, that kind of solidified them. It is
or liquefied them.
Yeah. It's a oozy-like substance. So what if this creature somehow, which is evil, just pure evil, and the consciousness of hundreds and thousands of voices of people, a group of people, merged or somehow collided with this fraction of change, because this creature hates the Federation. We even see in Lower Deck, in Lower Decks, they go and mess with this creature.
Right.
And start calling it a name and everything, and he screams at them. This is actually I was like, ooh, this could make sense, because it is also a changeling-like substance.
Right.
It's oozy. Who knows?
I like the theory. I like the theory because, in fact, when you see Vadic cut off her hand, whilst there is the predominance of the changeling sort of fleshy colour and the red, there is black elements that are sort of behind that, almost like sort of, edging it and framing it. So, I like that theory, Chris.
Interesting theory, Chris.
A lot.
I like
it's tied directly back to Next Generation, to a villain from the Next Generation, a villain that had impact on the team. And more importantly, it just keeps calling back to this evil, this horrible darkness that is in there. I don't know how it's connected to Jack, but this is the thing. This is why we have so much speculation, because unfortunately they haven't given us a lot of the door. They haven't kind of alluded to where things that Jack might what might have happened to Jack. It said that the syndrome that him and Picard share was potentially misdiagnosed. Is it telepathy, a connection? It's just there's so few tidbits or kind of crumbs here. I can see why everyone's kind of scraping, because we've got less than 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours, less than 2 hours left for two episodes. And they need to save Frontier Day and tell us who that thing is, and then have the wrap up. Yeah. I'm oof, I know you'll do it, but
it's totally doable. Doable. That's 2 full hours, an entire movie, Chris, length, to tell us that kind of story. They've got loads of time, especially because they paused a little bit in this episode and last episode to have those reunion moments and moments of nostalgia with the cast. So it's all in now for saving Frontier Day and learning who Jack is.
Yeah, I think ultimately, in terms of I'm probably not as bothered by that compared to you, Chris. Certainly not what's behind the door. I think absolutely that's kind of. I think they've shown it. I think it's been heightened here with Vadic this time. I guess it's more that a bit more explanation around Jack, actually, because effectively this episode, last episode, both ended with we will tell you the true nature of what you are.
Yes, I totally agree with you, John. Yeah, that's the cardinal sin here for me. Having a show that has the cliffhanger at the end of both episodes going, I will tell you from all of my experience, and I will help Jack and tell him who he is. In last episode with Vadic, and then this episode having almost exactly the same final line from Deanna. I will use everything in my power. It's time you found out who you are. And I thought, ooh, there's another couple of minutes left in the episode. But they spend those couple of minutes getting to the red door and then close with the closing credits. So I have no issue with this. This is one of the mysteries that needs to be solved. I totally get that. But ending at that point 2 episodes in a row, I felt is just a little bit too much. It just feels like you're stringing it along when you could have given a little bit more information.
Certainly in the final moments of Vadic, that because in a sense, that's where I thought it was going to come.
Yeah.
I was kind of waiting with bated breath, for when she kind of said it before she got sucked out, into space. And then, it's kind of, so it's almost 3 times, because then you have Deanna. possibly like that it's Deanna doing it rather than
definitely.
Vadic, because, you know, I like the fact that they're both there in the corridor, to go through the door. But even if they just opened it and showed something.
Can you imagine it was just like a person there? Like, okay, it's not going to be cute, but imagine they open the door and it's cute and you're like, oh my God, and then it's fade to black.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's like, oh, but at the moment it's just like,
But don't kind of give apocalyptic sort of feelings coming from the keyhole. You know, just kind of open it, even if it's just like destruction and the horsemen of the apocalypse sort of trotting past or something. You know,
I am Zool.
I'm Zool.
Do you know what? Do you know what it's going to be if the door opened at the end of the episode? It would just be another Jack inside. We'll explain next week, because they would do exactly the same thing. So if the door opened, it would have been Jack on the other side looking a little more evil, and then they'll explain next week who it is. Like, there was no way they were going to do it in this episode. There was just no way they were going to do it in this episode. They were going to end the episode the same way they ended last week's. But you're absolutely right, John. I think it's a really good point. They're trying to make sure that every member of the original bridge crew on The Next Generation has a purpose here. And the failing of Deanna's character, unfortunately, a lot of time in The Next Generation, it turned into a joke in Galaxy Quest. One of the characters basically repeats what the computer says. So a lot of time that was Deanna's point. She would sit there and go, I sense something bad. And they're going, what, from the bad guy there pointing their weapons at us? So a lot of people didn't know how to write Deanna's character back in the TNG times, unfortunately, because she is a great character when she's written well. So having her using her abilities as a Betazoid to talk to Jack, to put him in therapy effectively to deal with this issue that he's known about all of his whole life, that makes loads of sense for using one of your major characters from The Next Generation. So I'm glad they are using Deanna to do that. Would have liked to see more of this episode. Looking forward to seeing more next episode, of course. But you had to get her there. You had to get her on board the Titan to be able to do this. So I understand all the reason behind it. But yeah, I get why you're frustrated, Chris. I had the same thing of exactly as John said, getting to the end of the episode and going, oh, we still don't know who Jack is, and someone else is telling him, I'll tell you next week who you are, basically.
Like, I'm just now worried for Deanna. Of course. Because I'm like, uh-oh. You know, is something going to happen to her? So I really hope not.
I hope not.
Oh, you could easily have Jack go red-eyed and like snap her neck.
Oh,
but again,
Chris.
I don't think that would be like a very extreme death. It's like, and then bye. There you go. Yeah,
she did just resolve all of her issues with her husband.
Yeah, perfect time to do it.
No,
okay, stop it. Right.
Yes, let's move it in.
Let's move on.
Let's wait till the next episode, and if they don't do it next episode, and they leave us hanging again at the end of the next episode, we riot, and then we.
You see, I don't know whether I think next episode, because they've got to save Frontier Day, I think it might be, you know,
so do I.
Penultimate episode actually will be the Cracker, and it will sort of be save Frontier Day. Hopefully, get a bit of Janeway as well. I don't know, to be honest, but I'm looking forward to the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, next episode, Frontier Day finale, Jack, and then an ending.
No. They have to resolve who Jack is so that they can save Frontier Day. It has to be the other way around. It has to be in the penultimate episode that starts with this scene playing out and Deanna working with Jack to solve who he is, and then saving Frontier Day. It has to be that. Please be that.
We'll see. But that's a whole episode away, a whole week away. Derek, do you want to tell us your top point for this episode?
Yes, I do. There's only really one other thing I want to talk about from the episode. It's just Data taking control or coming back into control over Lore. You know, it was quite a big moment when we had Lore last week, effectively teaming up with Vadic, because he was like, well, enemies, my friend. Since you've locked me up here and I'm plugged into the computer system, well, I guess I'll shut all of you guys out. So I really liked that. But I thought this was actually well structured, what was happening between Data and Lore. I thought it was really good because you effectively have this evil character not willing to give up control of the golem, which is Lore, and then LaForge is depending on his best friend to find a way around what the much more powerful Lore wants to do. Lore is much more in control, and because he's willing to use tactics that Data would never use, he's most likely going to be able to wipe data out from the memory banks of the Golem. But I like how it played out. I like the trick of it, which is effectively he's going back through all of his memories, all the most precious things in his life. You mentioned Tasha Yar, of course, the playing cards that he used to play poker with the bridge crew, all of those moments. His Sherlock Holmes pipe. We've seen a little bit of that earlier on this season with Moriarty, of course. Yeah. Which, all these little moments, which are great for fans. And again, moments of nostalgia for us, but all have a purpose here. They're all being passed over to Lore. And Lore is realizing that these are important things to Data, and therefore they become important to him, which is a great twist. As Lore takes all of these memories from Data, they then become Lore's memories, and therefore he becomes more Data than himself. Yeah. I really like that. The final one, of course, because we're all cat lovers here. We have a cat on the front of our of TV Podcast Industries logo, representing our cats. So I love that we had Spot a little guest appearance. I presume it's not the original Spot.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
It might be. You never know.
Yeah, never know.
Cats do live a very long time.
Yeah.
I had one thing that I was like, I was expecting them to actually merge the character into a new personality almost. Mm-hmm. That's what I all thought they were going to do when they merged. And when you had the red and the blue, I thought we were going to get, rather than the blue taking over on the screen, I thought we were going to get like almost a purple. Right. And you were going to get like before again, or like now, ever after. Mm-hmm. Like some new amalgamation of everyone. Now we do have that amalgamation. It's just that Data is the primary kind of personality on top of that, and kind of the infrastructure. I can see why they did it. I know why they did it. It was a nice thing. It's nice to have Data back. But for a split second, I did feel that's where they were going when they started merging the two of them into, and especially. But then it was when Lore went first and Data didn't disappear. I was like, oh, okay. They're just gonna, his memories and who Lore is has become part of Data.
Well, yeah, I mean, he says, you've become me. Yeah. As he says, just before he says goodbye, brother, as he sort of dissipates in the Matrix. And it was, so I mean, it's more, and he does mention about, I'm not, he does quickly say, I'm not Data as we remember from The Next Generation. I've got these feelings, emotions, bits of information from all, the B4 Lore and so on. They are a part of me now. But it's like the main processing is the Data element because, like you say, by giving him the gifts, Lore became him. They became important for Lore. Yeah. So, Lore didn't have the same view of trinkets, I guess. Those relationships. I mean, he says that. He says these are a form of weakness. Yeah. And that's why I do like with Spot coming in where he says, even though Spot isn't human, it is the one thing that probably made me most human.
Yes, made him respect to life.
In the scheme of things, it's a very powerful memory that he's just given over.
Exactly, yeah, really, really good. And you're right, there is that moment where he's effectively saying, I am all of Data, but now I'm also Lore and before, and all the knowledge that Dr. Sung put inside the Golem. So he has access to all of those elements, but he is everything that was Data before as well. I'm really glad they addressed the end of season 1 of Picard, because that was a massively emotional moment when Data asked Jean-Luc to end his life, to finally shut him down effectively so that he can experience death, the one thing that he could never experience. I love that they addressed it and the way they addressed it, where he was saying, but that did happen. Yeah. That's what happened to Data. He's gone. I'm here now in a different way. He's in a different body. He has other things to experience. So I'm glad that they addressed it in that way. It would have been a very weird season if we didn't have Data back by the end of the season, given everybody else was returning. So I'm glad they found a way to do it, which made sense within the show. But they also addressed the fact that we've had an end to the Data that we knew back in the first season. Did a good job.
And again, if they decide to move forward with some of these characters, not saying that they do, but if they do decide to give, like, Brett Spiner may go, yeah, do you know what? Give me another couple of cameos. It allows you to move on, and any inconsistencies from the Data we knew, because, as you said, to Air is human and Brett Spiner is human, you can kind of, well, it's not Data, it's Data 2.0. Yeah, he's the new Data.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So he's allowed to age as well, which is always important, and doesn't have to put on the very white makeup, which I'm sure is very annoying for him to do this many years later. Similar to obviously Geordie LaForge replacing his eye visor with much easier to wear contact lenses in order to continue working in Next Generation. So, the Next Generation movies. Anyway, another great character moment. I really enjoyed this. I like this version of storytelling. It's a bit more ethereal, a bit more unusual the way they did this moment inside of the Golem, effectively. But I did really like it. That was cool. Good stuff. That's my major moment, and I think all of our moments for the episode.
Excellent. Gentlemen, any notes for this episode?
I just have one note. It's just the little sort of bombshell that you get from Will Riker whilst him and Deanna are in the cell, where you hear that, and the reason why Vadic got Deanna was Will gives her, I think he calls them compromise codes, so that she can get control of the Titan in order to stop them from continuing their interrogation / torture of Deanna. So I like that, and then I like the little joke that it's not really a big thing because I'm confident that Picard will come up with a whiz-bang kind of plan that will sort of undermine what Vadic is doing, which I guess if only he was on the bridge, he probably could have done. But
I love that it's like, Picard will recognize those compromise codes immediately, and I'm sure he has the Titan well in hand right now, as all the bridge crew of the Titan are on board, being threatened by
exactly
by Vadic. It was a great joke, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But also what I love about it is that it didn't play out in any way whatsoever. The code that was given to override the bridge code had nothing to do with the compromise codes that Riker gave at all. There was nobody worked out what Riker's plan to help them save the Titan was.
I know.
How cool is that? It's so unusual. We had it before actually in this season, didn't we? We mentioned it last week that there was a plan that didn't play out. So I like that they've done that here. Good stuff. I have no other notes though on the episode.
Yeah, no notes from me except very quickly to say that I'm really happy we saw Tasha Yar. Even holographic form, it was nice to see. I know we were saying they may be able to use the changelings to bring in some extra kind of faces.
Yeah.
Didn't use it to bring in hers, but at least we got to see her even in holographic form. It's been years since we saw her, just even on since the very first season.
Yeah. I know she did come back for one or two episodes, but not as Tasha Yar, of course. So, great to see a little nod to her in there. I'm really sorry about this. We didn't get to watch the episode as many times as I normally would like to. Was Dr. Pulaski in the flashes from Data? So I think I might have missed her. The doctor who replaced Beverly Crusher for a season on Next Generation. We've talked about her before, but there's a great moment between the two of them where she has a big sparring moment with Data, because she won't call him by the name Data. She will call him Data, because that's how she pronounces data. So I was expecting that they might have done a callback to her, but I didn't see it in this episode. And I guess you guys didn't notice it.
No, I didn't either.
Okay. I was hoping that we would see Dr. Pulaski at least mentioned in the episode. But hey, you never know. Still 2 more episodes to go.
Exactly. But speaking of those 2 episodes, we need to get there. So let's wrap up, gentlemen. John, final thoughts on Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 8, Surrender.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this season. Really enjoyed this episode. I'd give it 4 early flights out of 5 for the old red eye.
Very good.
Yes, I just really enjoyed it. I loved... and was sad to see Vadic go. I think great antagonist here. Loved how Vadic has been played by Amanda Plummer. So yeah, I just thought it was really good. If a little kind of abrupt and a bit shocking, I wasn't thinking it would be now that she would find her end, but certainly she would probably need to be ended, a bit like as Picard said in the last episode. The hate has filled her too much, when they're sort of debating about whether they would need to kill her. Having the next generation come back together again around the table in the ready room, just really, really good.
So cool.
Glad we got to see Will and Deanna on the Shrike. I just thought this played out really well. I think there was lots of moving parts. It was hugely tense in places. Whatever about the darkness surrounding and forming around Jack, I think that the episode was pretty dark with the execution of Lieutenant Tavine, but also really the slaughter of all the other remaining crew that was happening right at the start.
Really good.
Data and Law's sort of battle, really good as well. It's great just to have those moments with Data and Geordi. So, this was hugely successful in that. I think the only thing that would pull me back from that, and why probably just maybe dock half a mark in a sense of in my review, is because I would have liked a little bit of something. I mean, on Jack Crusher, even if it was tangential, and I think it would have been nice it coming from Vadic, other than effectively, her sort of making that empathetic connection about the voices and the red door, sort of understanding or knowing what the visions are about and what he's seeing. I think that would have been nice, but I'm intrigued with Deanna sort of going with him on that journey, and I really hope she survives. So yeah, 4 early flights out of 5 from me.
Great stuff. Derek, what about yourself?
I love this episode. I know I picked a lot of the emotional moments between the cast, but I think the reason why was because I know you guys were picking the other bigger moments from the episode, but I did really enjoy those as well. So overall, I think it was a highly successful episode. Really great what they're doing this season. Really great that they're, as I said many times already, that they're not just giving cameos to people that we want to see again, that everybody's getting a big moment. Everybody's getting some great moments. We even had a wonderful Raffi moment in this episode where she got to fight against the changelings aboard the Titan. That was cool. The Jack moment as well, when he was possessing one of the other members of the crew using his abilities, and that crew member dies, being shot by one of the changelings. I thought that was really affecting as well. How difficult that must be for him when he's trying to work out how to use those powers. I thought it was performed really well and looked really cool. But yeah, overall, loved this episode. Really excited to see how they close out the season in the last 2 episodes. How about yourself, Chris? What was your overall thoughts for this episode of Star Trek Picard?
It was that last bit of what's in the box, what's in the door.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very much season-long question that's just been tantalized, but not enough to form what I consider right now valid hypotheses in terms of where they're going with the story. And that kind of both intrigues me and kind of worries me at the same time. So far, they have not given me enough to make me fully worry. I think that this will kind of not be landed. I think that they've shown an understanding of the characters, understanding of the show, the universe, and just good narrative chops enough to kind of deliver. So as we go into next week's penultimate episode, I think as long as they kind of give us some of the major beats that we need, i.e. start answering some more of the questions, and then give us at least a good chunk of 15, 20 minutes at the end of the actual finale to wrap everything up in a nice bow and not rush it, I think we're in a good place. But for this episode in particular, I really enjoyed it. It kind of, it gave me Data with a bit of humor and using contractions. So what more can you ask for?
Always good.
I know what we can ask for. We could ask for a drink. So, gentlemen, let's head on over to 10 Forward for the 10 Forward Pub Quiz.
Yes, fellow Trekkies and quizzers, welcome to 10 Forward, episode 8. So on to question 8. What are the digits of Picard's override code entered by the tactical officer Lieutenant Mura on the bridge of Titan as he is controlled by Jack Crusher?
That should narrow it down a bit.
Yes. So it doesn't need to be the full code. It's effectively the digits that are used by him, because he doesn't quite succeed, but whether that's because he's just not pressed enter just
I think
yet.
It is, yeah. I think it is.
So, yeah.
Authorize, I think, is the button that's lit up.
It is the code. Then.
So if we have that code, we could take over the Titan.
We could.
Or any Starfleet ship, I think.
Yeah,
does Admiral Picard have an override code for every starship? I guess so.
I would say so, as an admiral.
So exactly. So Eagle Eyes viewers, get pausing, get writing those numbers down.
Mm-hmm.
One more time, John, for those in the back who didn't quite understand.
Yes. What are the digits of Picard's override code entered by the tactical officer, Lieutenant Mura, on the bridge of the Titan as he is controlled by Jack Crusher?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And don't forget to send all your answers at the end of the season into feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com to be in a chance to win some Picard goodies. And again, if you really want a refresh of all the other questions, you can head on over to the website tvpodcastindustries.com, and they're all listed there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we also need some feedback from our fellow Trekkers and Trekkies.
Absolutely. First up, we have an email from Neil, and I'm really sorry, Neil. Your email did come in time for our recording last week, and I forgot to put it into our feedback area, so my apologies about that. Neil says, "Hi all, I've never listened to any podcasts before, but I'm really enjoying your Star Trek Picard Season 3 podcast, and will definitely listen to your other ones." He has a bit of speculation about potentially what's going on in the show. He says, "I wonder if they've stolen Picard's body to get his DNA for his and Jack's medical condition, and like how Starfleet gave a virus to the changelings, are they planning on infecting the solids with a deadlier version of the condition? Thank you again, Neil." That's quite an interesting theory, isn't it?
Yes, we do like a bit of speculation and theorizing, Neil. And I mean, for sure. I mean, this episode as well, we hear that they've actually taken out pieces of Picard's frontal lobe.
Mm-hmm.
They're analyzing them. They have rakes and rakes of data on it. So I guess for the changelings, or indeed this other entity, revenge is a dish best served cold, and will give some of their own medicine.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I like that idea. I think maybe they're kind of doing something with Picard's syndrome, and maybe it's a way to give it to every biological species out there who has synaptic pathways and have to use them and turn them stupid, or kind of accelerate it so that they have crazy form of dementia or something.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
And that's awesome, Neil, that we're the first ever podcast you've listened to.
Yeah.
See,
welcome aboard, Neil.
Every podcast can be somebody's first. I'm glad you found us.
Yes.
And you're enjoying it.
Even more so.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's also very, very good. But great stuff. Thanks, Neil, for your feedback. We also got an email in from Virat, who says, "Hey, love the show. Listen to it every week. 2 points to make. Both points I'm confused a little from the podcast and the show itself. First, if the changelings stole the body to replicate a complete Picard to replace him at Frontier Day, wouldn't a replica scan as fake? Picard is a synth, and Starfleet knows this, right? Doesn't he scan as a synthetic? Second, isn't Vadic referring to the Deep Space Nine episode where Bashir and O'Brien steal the cure from Sloane's mind when saying it had to be stolen? I think she is crediting Odo for stealing it, but once the female changeling was cured in Deep Space Nine and Odo went to the Great Link to cure the rest, didn't they have the cure? Both points are confusions. Any further thoughts to clarify your point or the show's points would be helpful. Love the show, Virat." Thanks so much, Virat, for the feedback. I think on the first point, Picard is a synth, but they are fairly indistinguishable. So it depends on the type of scanning, whether they are scanning at a level that could pick up a synth. So
they'll be scanning for whatever Picard is now, and we kind of did laugh a little bit in season 1 when Picard was put into this new synthetic body, the Golem, and they kind of yada away the explanation, but they said, you are exactly the same Picard as you were before in this new body, which is no longer your organic body, but it's pretty much the same thing. You'll still die when you were supposed to die, but you won't die of aromatic syndrome. So they kind of glossed over how close this body is to Picard's real body. That's why it looks the same. That's why it's the same age as his body. That's why it will continue to age, just like the actor will continue to age. So they did kind of say this may not scan like a traditional synthetic because it's so highly advanced. It's one of a kind until there's a new one now for Data. It's one of a kind, but it won't scan as a synth. But I would presume what Picard was saying was that they'd set up the security measures with that body in mind, with that synthetic body or that golem in mind. So it had to be exactly the same as that. So the show was speculating that that's what they were doing. We were also speculating that that's what they were doing. And it turns out now in this episode, that's not what they were doing. They were actually doing experiments on the body to take the aromatic syndrome from it.
Yeah.
They wanted what's in his mind. His mind.
Yes. What was destroying his mind and what was killing him at the time. Yeah. On the other point, that's a really, really good point, Virat. Yes, I absolutely remember that's how Deep Space Nine closed out, with Odo going to the Great Link to cure the rest of the changelings. I wasn't sure of the exact details of who stole the cure. But I'm sure you're right on that was from Bashir and O'Brien. But I would say Vadic may not be the most reliable of narrators in what she believes happened. So it may be her belief. Remember, she is full of rage and full of revenge for what happened to her people in the first place, for them being given the virus in the first place. So maybe that might explain the inconsistency. But otherwise, you've caught a really good inconsistency.
No, I think it's just more history is written by the victors. So slightly,
that's what she said.
She is saying, like you're telling us that we don't believe that, and they didn't get the cure because they weren't part of the link, because they were in test tubes. They were prisoners of war being tested on. So again, I think there's additional fractures on her memory and her, because you hear when she's sitting in a test tube for years, or for a period of time, it's coming in and out, and that's how she hears the song and things. So I think good like actual inconsistency. It is a kind of, it is that, but I think it's also the who is telling us that. The way they're saying it is kind of, you're expected to understand there's an inconsistency, I think.
Yeah. And she's right. For her experience and the experience of the other changelings is they were not given a cure for the virus. They were brought aboard Daystrom Station and brutally tested on for decades. So, so it's a really interesting point, though, Vera. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and thanks for listening along with us for the Star Trek Picard podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Vera.
I hope we've explained at least what we were coming from, or where we were coming from.
Yes, thanks for that. Over on Facebook, the last piece of feedback comes from Jamie Lawton, who had this speculation about Jack. With the red eyes, I think Jack is being possessed by a Path Wraith. And with the wealth of past characters from the various other shows, I am thinking that the handhead communicating with Vadic could be Dukat trapped in the fire pit in Bajor.
Wow. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. I know Dukat. I know who that is.
Yeah.
I don't know what a Path Wraith is. Is this this is one where I'm like, which one?
Yeah, the Power Wraiths always used to confuse me watching Deep Space Nine. They were effectively the villains that were the opposite of the prophets inside the wormhole. So the prophets are who the Bajorans, the planet of Bajor, all of those people, that's who they worshipped and their enemies were the power rates. Apparently, they were originally very similar species to the Prophets, but another breakaway faction there. But I can kind of see it. They're non-corporeal beings. They can possess. So I can really see this as a potential, Jamie.
Yeah.
Again, something else coming from Deep Space Nine. You know, we have the changelings here, who are major villains within Deep Space Nine. So the idea that the power rates could have returned here, is a really interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely. It might explain the fiery glow as well coming through the keyhole that we mentioned around possibly something to do with Bajor and the fire pits on Bajor.
And that's potentially Ducat behind that door. Can you imagine if the door opened and Gul Ducat happened to be behind it? That would be very cool. That would be pretty awesome. But again, that may be very deep in lore of Deep Space Nine. So they could do it though.
You could with Worf being there.
Yeah.
Like Worf gives you that shorthand outside of, oh my god, that's such and such. Yeah. Oh my god, that's the wraiths. Like you could get a bit of Basil exposition from Worf in a very Worf way.
Yeah.
I liked it. I hadn't heard of this, and I really like now you're saying it. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a secondary one. That's a secondary option.
Yeah,
and knowing that Captain Sisko is with the Prophets, another reason that we could have Captain Sisko back to fight the power rates.
Yes.
Yeah.
I still don't think that's going to happen. But we still would love another reason for it to happen. Great stuff. We are recording a little bit early this week, which is why we have no feedback on episode 8. But please get your feedback into us for any thoughts that you have on episode 8 of Star Trek Picard to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries, where you can leave your thoughts on the spoiler post that'll be up right now for episode 8.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you stay subscribed to the podcast. And if you're enjoying what you hear, why not share it with your friends? Because sharing the podcast is what, gentlemen?
Sharing the love.
It is, absolutely. Sharing the love.
And if you really like what you hear, you can support us by heading on over to patreon.com/tvpodcastindustries, where you can support us for a single galactic credit, an ongoing amount of your choice. It is there. But if you want to do a one-off donation, like some offering to these PAL wraiths and these other more beneficial, benevolent guys in the wormhole, you can
offer to the Prophets, probably not the PAL wraiths.
Hopefully. If you want to offer to the Prophets, you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/TVPI, where you can do a one-off offering to the Prophets. We'll be back next week with the penultimate episode of Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 9, your feedback for the show, and the next question on our 10 Forward pub quiz. So make sure you join us for that.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us for our podcast about Picard this week. We'll speak to you again next time.
Yes, thank you so much, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers, for joining us. Can't wait to speak to you next time. But until then, keep watching, keep listening, and keep trekking across the universe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.